Welcome, friends.
Welcome, friends. We're delighted to connect with you again this week. We loved hearing all of your comments last week about how you enjoyed our talk about National Friendship Day, which was last week. And so I hope that you all were able to connect with some friends and think about maybe some new friends that you would like to reach out to. It's such an important thing for us to maintain and make new friendships when we're able to.
Yes, maybe Friendship Day should be every day.
Maybe that's a good idea.
It is. Well, as I came up through the edge of the woods today to come up here and talk to all of you, I saw the goldenrod again, saying hello to it this morning, and it has just started to bloom. And I love seeing it bloom. It's really quite spectacular when it blooms. It shows its beautiful head of little flowers. And this is in a bouquet that I had for up here at the shop. And this is the beautiful head of the goldenrod, which we just love. It when I pick it, when I gathered this morning, I clipped it off, and I bid it good morning first, and I thanked it for coming in and talking to us today and letting us share it with you. Well, anyway, there was a spider on it. And this spider is one I look for every time I see the goldenrod because I love that little spider. Yes, I'm not fond of spiders, but I do respect them a lot. And this little one is such a cutie. It is yellow, the color of the goldenrod, and it sits in there and you can't hardly see it.
No, it's camouflaged so well.
Until it moves. And then it kind of looks like a little crab.
Yep, crab spider, yeah.
It's a crab spider, okay? It's no bigger than a fingernail, but it's the sweetest little thing. And I told him it had to go live on another plant, and it did. And it did, so I have this one up here to show you today. It is a pollinator plant. You'll see insects on this a lot.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the very beneficial plants in our area here in the prairie.
Definitely one of our favorites.
In the Midwest. It's just a good one. And a lot of people think that it is the culprit of allergies.
Right. Hay fever. People think, the goldenrod's blooming, I'm going to have hay fever, but it's not because of the goldenrod.
No. In fact, the pollen is sticky. It stays on the goldenrod. And of course, you know what is growing the same time goldenrod is? Ragweed. And we are not fond of ragweed.
No. It has little green flowers, and so they're hidden, and so that's why the goldenrod gets blamed.
Yes.
Yep.
And so when the goldenrod's out, we know the ragweed's right behind it, and that's when the allergy season starts. But goldenrod is not the
one to blame. In fact, it's one that can help.
It is really one that can help. Its Latin name is solidago, and that means to strengthen.
Oh, that's interesting, because I've heard it called, or that Latin name, solidago, meaning to make whole, which probably is about the same.
Same thing,
yeah.
I would think, yes. But it's been held in high regard with herbalists for centuries.
Yeah, for as long as it's probably been out there blooming.
Yes. And some of the traditional uses for it are, you can chew the blossoms slowly as a remedy for sore throats. Now, you'd want to get that early on before it turned to fluff.
Yeah, and make sure you aren't chewing any bugs with it properly.
Yes. And a poultice of the roots was helpful for toothaches. A tea of the flowers and leaves relieves urinary tract issues. It is one that we call the Midwest arnica here. Yeah. And arnica is really used for bruises and for aches and pains and so on. And it's a wonderful one for use of that.
Yeah.
And so it's a really beneficial plant.
Yeah, a lot of people are familiar with arnica for the homeopathic preparation of arnica. And arnica does grow wild in many places in the U.S., but not in our area. In our area, it's actually quite hard to grow. And so it's wonderful to have an herb that grows wild that we can use as a substitute for arnica that can also be taken internally, which arnica cannot be taken internally.
Yes. It's important if you're going to gather and dry the goldenrod that you gather it just as it's turning color. So it may be a little greenish, turning to the gold.
Yeah.
That's the excellent time to gather it and to bring it in. You can strip the leaves off, clip the heads off, and dry them on a white dish towel. That's what I do in the middle of my big island. And I have several dish towels out there, and they're drying the goldenrod when it's ready to gather. Right now, we don't have enough of it to gather.
Just beginning.
I've seen one or two plants at
Right.
this point.
I haven't seen any, so until you brought one in.
I am aware of what's going on out there and what's blooming. I've watched for it, in fact. And it's great then to make a tea out of it, an infusion.
For sure.
And that is really the first line of defense, the first remedy is making a tea out of it.
And it has 7 times more antioxidants than green tea. A lot of people are really big fans of green tea, but green tea can have some issues. It has high fluoride content. If you're not drinking organic, it could have DDT in it and other things. Whereas goldenrod, as long as you're getting it from someplace where it hasn't been sprayed, it's
Yes.
organic, it's free, and it's 7 times more antioxidants.
Yes, and you can add a teaspoon of honey to it if you want to, but to a warm tea, not really a hot tea,
Sure.
because the heat will destroy the nutrients of the honey otherwise. Or a little bit of a drop or two of the stevia.
Stevia is always good, yeah.
Stevia is
Different
always
things.
good, yes.
Or it adds a little spearmint to it if you want some sparkle to it. It's
Absolutely.
nice too, yeah.
Absolutely, but I do plan to gather a little bit of it and keep it in your home apothecary because it's really wonderful to use. And I write about goldenrod in my book on page 264. Actually, it's in the September chapter, but you might want to go ahead and read that just so you have a little more information on it, because with climate change, it's blooming earlier and earlier and earlier.
It's earlier and earlier. And then depending how far south, or I know a lot of your chapters were written when you lived in Nebraska, and so it probably blooms later there too.
10 years ago, every decade has made a difference, I believe, in all of our wildlife.
For sure.
And what is growing and blooming.
Yeah, and I think that connection with wildlife is so important.
Yes.
And I love hearing about what you're seeing when you come up through the woods. And,
I really
because
watch.
I don't get out. I mean, I don't always walk around the land the way I wish that I did. I wish that I had time for right now, which I don't. But
Well, I go
yeah.
up and down the lane
Yeah.
and to gather my mail. And I have a super long lane that goes in with my house hidden way in the back and towards the woods. And then I come up along the edge of the woods in the little pathway to the shop.
Yes. So wonderful.
That has worked out well because I watch for lots of things. And as I said before, I've seen a possum, I've seen a skunk, I've seen lots of things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of animals on my property.
And there are friends. We talked about Friendship Day, but there are friends too.
Yes, they are.
That deep feeling of connection with nature and what's blooming, what's growing, what's crossing our paths, and I think
Yes.
that's worth a day of its own too, to recognize our Nature Connection Day, which also should be every day.
Yes.
Because I think when we talked about belonging last week with National Friendship Day, I think that sense of belonging also can extend to our feeling of belonging in the greater whole, in the world itself, and our connection with other beings, with the plants, with all of nature, which we aren't separate from, we are part of. And I was reading something about it was a gal who's part Lakota, and she was talking about her grandmother, her Lakota grandmother, would start the day by singing a prayer, and it was a prayer, and how her Lakota grandmother taught her that the word universe, universe, is one song, that we are all part of the same song, the same vibration, and I just love that.
Unity.
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Unity. Yes.
Unity in the universe.
It's a good one. And I do think even if we live a solitary life, as I do back in my woods quite a bit, and there is something to be said about everything that is around us because we are all connected. We are all unified
And I
in
think-
that regard with our plants and the animals around us.
Yeah, and I think those people who just are in the city all the time, in the concrete jungle, as they call it, where they're not putting their feet on Mother Earth, they're not touching the plants, they're not having that experience or that opportunity to have that experience, it can really foster a sense of disconnection. And so I think so I would be interested to know, you can comment below, how do you foster that sense of connection within yourself? Do you take time to go outside or to do anything to foster that connection with the greater world? We'd love to hear from you always, your ideas, your thoughts.
Absolutely, yeah. And even, living the solitary life, how is it that we do connect? And with friends as well as our
You bet.
plant and animal friends
Yes,
too.
because they're part of nature too,
They
right?
certainly are. I'm always happy to hear when our friends come into the shop here to visit and to shop, that they are visiting the wetlands that is not very far from
Yes.
here. And I'm so thankful that we have a place like that. It's all the wildlife that lives in that area, and so they plan to go there to walk. And that's what parks And these conservation areas are all about use them, walk them,
Yes.
sit with nature in
You
them.
bet. Yeah, we're so fortunate to have our parks and wetlands, and that's a great opportunity
It
too
is.
to go.
Visit a national park in the summer if you
Oh,
want. Whatever. I think that's really good. Well, this week I'd like to show you another page in my book, and it's entitled Leaves. Well, our prompt, and this is that 52-week challenge, so every week we are doing something. And from it, I hope to learn from it something in life, a new technique, just something. And sometimes it'll give me a day or two that I want to ponder on it, to think about what it's all about or what it means to me. And this one was that we were to go and collect a couple of leaves, and we would press them, and then we would wax them. And the way we waxed them, I would take a few granules of wax and put it between wax paper, and then I put a little cloth on top, and I ironed it to get it melted between the wax paper, and then I quickly put my leaf in and pressed down again, and it coated the leaves.
Oh, how cool.
And so by coating the leaves, it made them just a little bit stronger, because we were going to sew with them.
Oh.
And I thought, oh my, this is going to be something. Well, it was quite an example in patience because it took effort to get to stitch through them. And so this is my page of leaves. And I have 2 leaves on here, and they actually had a hole in the middle of this one. And so I stitched around the hole with what's called an eyelet stitch. It just went all the way around it. Almost looks like a buttonhole. And then, and that's a redbud leaf, which is in the shape of a heart. I knew that was the first leaf I was going to put in here for sure. The other one is just an elm leaf, which we have a lot of elms around here. And so I sewed them on here, and the idea is that one day these leaves are going to be gone. They're going to be completely disintegrated from my book, crumble away. But what will remain will be the outline of where they were. And so that there is a lesson in that. We do leave some things behind when we leave. And I like that a lot. And I wrote underneath of it, nothing is truly perfect or permanent.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I just enjoyed it a lot making it. This might be something you might like to try also, to stitch with a leaf.
I love
so
that.
I've got some things to add to it today. So yes.
That's marvelous, Mom.
It's fun, just fun to do. And so that's another one of my pages in my book. And there'll be 52 weeks, so there'll be 52 pages. And so we're on the downside now. We're going down, but my book is quite thick, and I love it. It's working great.
Oh,
and
it's so many neat things in there.
Yes, and some of our other ladies in the sewing circle are doing it too. So it's really fun for us to compare, and everybody does something different, no matter what. And so with that, I think I'm going to read the quote for today. And it's, again, from the book, my book. And this is in the August chapter. It's the first quote in the book. It says, every day may not be good, but there is something good in every day. We just need to look for it. So, and with that, we will plan to see you next week.
Good earth blessings to you.